What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. For obvious reasons, not gonna be ridiculous Russian propaganda this episode, because Putin, this time, he really did cross the line, making his world to be split before and after. Even though the world already split in before and after he invaded Ukraine, but now it is just absolutely point of no return. Not a single Z-patriot can ever justify whatever Putin is doing at this point. I mean, he is just one of the most evil people have ever lived on this earth. So, as you might have heard, there was one of the biggest attacks against civilian residential cities in Ukraine this last morning. As you can see from this map, these are the approximate directions for the drones and the missiles. And the major cities which were affected was Dnipro, Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Kryvyi Rog, and obviously the capital, Kyiv. And even though Ukrainian air defense was able to intercept the majority of the targets, unfortunately still not a single hypersonic missile was intercepted, but ballistic ones were already intercepted, thanks to mainly Patriot defense systems, which are now protecting the capital of Ukraine. But nevertheless, it was just way too many of them, overloading the Ukrainian air defense systems. That is why, unfortunately, the target which was destroyed by Russian attacks, specifically using Kha-101 missiles in Kyiv, it was a child's hospital, Ohmad-Did, where kids were receiving kidneys dialysis. Well, this was a direct hit, no matter how much Russian propaganda was trying to say, and in this episode you will see exactly why. The patriots and the propagandists, they were trying to make any possible justification that this was a Ukrainian metallic cylinder, specifically the one from Patriot, but for example right here you can see that it obviously has these wings, it has these parts in the back. There is simply no way it resembles Patriot versus Kha-101, the one that Russian army uses. Right here, for example, is even more clear stop frame from this attack, and at this point it is absolutely indistinguishable. Even some Z-patriotic Telegram channels, they released videos from different angles, where you can see it even further, that it is not Patriot, it is not Ukrainian air defense, it is not Ukrainian S-300 or anything like this, no. This is Russian Kha-101. At first, the Ministry of Defense of Russia was claiming this as a response for Ukrainians attacking the energy infrastructure of Russians. Specifically, what they mentioned is the attack of Ukrainians against oil refineries and oil reservoirs, which, yeah, just like, imagine, Ukrainians are attacking legitimate military targets. For this reason, Russians respond by attacking kids. The most ridiculous justifications that we received is that Russians obviously used at least 65 of metallic cylinders to perform this mass attack. Every single one of them was able to reach its final destinations. Some of them were intercepted, but still somehow they reached their final destinations. All of them were specifically and extremely precisely targeted. These were the center for decision-making centers, or military warehouses, military factories, military bases, things like this. Not a single residential area was affected, according to the Russian propaganda. Whenever the evidence that it was Russian Kha-101 and it was a deliberate attack against a hospital was just way too obvious to ignore, Russian propaganda immediately switched its narrative, and all as one started saying that this was an attack by Ukrainians themselves. Guess why? So they can show these photos and videos to the world, cry, whine how Russia is attacking how Russia is attacking poor Ukraine, so Zelensky can continue to beg for more billions of dollars, which will end up in the pockets of his friends. This was the second justification for the Russian propaganda. But the fact is the fact. Approximately 80% of this hospital is now absolutely non-operational. There are dozens of ill and critically ill patients, which now have to be transported to other hospitals, including the ones abroad. But the Ukrainian people regular people. They did not waste any moment, they did not just rely on the services like firefighters or anything like this, no. All as one started to be in this some kind of an assembly line, and they started to remove the debris themselves to speed up the process. The very same happened with the volunteers who were passing water in the opposite direction. And this whole situation, why specifically this splits the world of Putin to before and after, in already after world that he created for himself since 2022, it is because all of his speeches about protecting the people of Donbass, about specifically protecting Ukrainian poor kids from these authorities who are sitting within their Verkhovnaya Rada, who do not value the lives of their own civilians, who will continue fighting until the very last Ukrainian, all of these speeches can now be fully ignored. It is not like that any single person was listening to them anyways, except maybe some crazy Z-patriots and some Russia lovers abroad. Now, like, just pictures cannot lie. It is not a Photoshop. It is not created by artificial intelligence. These are real photos and videos. So whenever Putin proclaims the July 8th, it is the day of love, the day of families, the day of protecting kids, and this is what literally happens in his bordering country, which definitely had his direct impact, direct approval to perform these attacks. It is just the next level cynicism. Putin is, like, I would say, top 3 most evil people who ever lived on this planet at this point. It is obvious. There is no way to prove it otherwise. As soon as the war is over, hopefully rather sooner than later, those Z-patriots who are supporting him right now, we can only imagine how they're gonna feel, but well, we're not gonna care because they have right now all the evidence in front of their eyes. If they still decide to continue supporting the regime of Putin, at this point it's on them. And I'm almost certain that this video will receive tons of limitations and restrictions, because you already know, guys, the situation with me and YouTube, how much it does not like me to present uncomfortable truth on their own platform. For this reason, even though I try to censor everything, even though I'm trying to not even say bad words, unfortunately, due to past experience, it will still be most likely limited and censored. But unfortunately, I still have to do it, because otherwise I might receive a strike on my channel, which is the worst case scenario. This is definitely what ruins channels, and 3 strikes, it allows YouTube to entirely delete my channel. But still, guys, I want to share this episode with you guys completely for free. Like, for free, don't even worry about it. It is on my Patreon, you can go ahead and check it right now. No need to subscribe, no nothing. It is right now on Patreon, no money needed, it is for free, trust me. Because Patreon is the platform where I can express my ideas more clearly, where I don't need to censor myself. Once again, yeah, today's everything is absolutely for free, go ahead and check it, link is down below. Let's also briefly talk about some other things which happened in the last 48 hours. I don't think they are related to this attack against Ukraine, but still, knowing the context, it might mean that maybe, just maybe, some people in Russia, they finally start to understand something. First of all, it looks like that more and more civilian people, more and more residents of Belgorod region, they kinda see the reality of what's happening, that Russia is not protecting them against these Ukrainian attacks, so they believe less and less to what they hear on federal channels. They don't believe the propaganda. For example, more and more of Belgorod residents, they started to put Ukrainian colors on top of their houses and putting this BNR on top of the roofs, which is in Russian is, it almost sounds like Belgorodskaya Narodnaya Respublika, pretty much supposedly part of Ukraine Republic, which belongs to Ukraine. And in Russian, what they kinda claim, it means it's бойцы не размещены, also BNR. To kinda avoid some questions from the Russian authorities, from the Russian soldiers, what do these words mean? And this is just one of the way of how they can protect their own houses against the attacks by Ukrainian drones, because Russian propaganda actively forces the ideas that Russian soldiers sometimes they have to take abandoned houses, even though most likely they're forcefully relocate the residents who live there. And whenever Ukrainians inevitably do attack these houses, the Russian propaganda uses these videos to show their own people that, look, Ukrainians are just targeting civilian neighborhoods. Well, it is obviously, without a doubt, simple as that, not true. There is no way Ukraine's gonna waste resources on civilians. They have barely enough as it is to fight against the regular Z army. So these things like Ukrainian flags and BNR on top of the roofs, this is the initiative of their own, Russian people living in Belgorod who are just fed up with lies they hear on TV. So depending on how soon this war will end and what will be the outcome of it, it does feel like that more and more people of Belgorod region, they want independence from Russia. Along some eastern front lines, the army also launched a pretty big attack against Novoprakhovka. Ukrainians were able to successfully repel it. And then right here is one of the most recent videos from Chasiv Yar showing the condition of the city. Well, nothing is gonna change. It is in full, absolutely shambles. The city is non-existent at this point. And then here is a perfect satellite image comparison to show you how exactly Russians completely destroy everything to the ground along the front lines, because it does show some particular city, and then there was a front line literally going through the city. Well, as you can see, it literally just became a non-occupied by anyone or anything, empty, abandoned piece of land. And ultimately, right here is the picture from neighborhoods in Melitopol. This one is already next to Zaporozhye front lines to the south of them. So long story short, right here, what we see according to local residents is that Ukrainians were able to destroy its air defense system of Russians called Pantsir. This is exactly the very same thing Ukrainians are doing on the Crimean Peninsula, preparing for their further land offensive. Well, now looks like that the majority of Russian air defense systems on the peninsula are already destroyed. Now Ukrainians have to create some other routes of their further counteroffensive against Crimea. First of all, obviously, they will be advancing close to Crimea from the north, from Kherson region. They just have to cross Dnipro River. This is pretty much the last complicated objective on their way. Another potential direction of attack will also come from the northeast, specifically from Melitopol direction. So it looks like Ukrainians are planning also to advance closer to the Melitopol in the near future, and first thing they have to do is to destroy its protection in form of air defense systems. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to continue receiving such daily news. Hopefully it's gonna be more good of them in the near future. The episode uncensored, completely for free on my Patreon. All the other useful links down below. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.